Jaron worked alone in the old junkyard on the edge of the colony. It was a forgotten place, piles of broken machines, rusty metal, and silence. Every evening, he packed the leftover food from his lunch and saved it in a small container. He often left it on the counter inside his small hut, planning to take it home later. But for the third time this week, the food was missing. The container was empty, the lid tossed on the ground like garbage. Jaron frowned and looked around. "Rats don't open lids," he muttered under his breath. Someone was stealing from him. That evening, he decided to wait. He hid behind an old broken engine, keeping still as the sun dipped low. The metal piles cast long shadows. The wind howled through cracks in the walls. Time passed slowly, but then he heard it. A soft crunch, a light step, and a small figure moved between the metal heaps. Jaron narrowed his eyes. It wasn't a rat or an animal. It was a child, thin and quick, crawling toward the hut. The figure wore a dark cloth over the head and shoulders, torn and dusty. Jaron waited until the small hand reached for the food. Then he stepped out. "Hey!" he shouted. The child screamed and ran, dropping the container. Jaron chased him between piles of junk, over rusted beams, past broken robots. The child was fast, but Jaron knew the yard better. He cut through a side path and blocked the way. The child stopped, breathing hard, trapped. Jaron slowly walked closer, raising his hands to show he wasn't going to hurt him. "You stealing from me?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The child didn't answer. His face was hidden behind the cloth, but Jaron could see the shaking shoulders. "I'm not mad," Jaron said. "I just want to know why." The child looked up, his eyes large and glowing slightly blue. Not human. An alien child, maybe 9 or 10 years old, with sharp cheekbones and gray skin. The cloth slipped off a bit, revealing small ears and scars on his forehead. "I'm sorry," the child whispered, voice trembling. "Why are you stealing food?" Jaron asked, softer now. The child's eyes filled with tears. "Mama is sick," he said. "She can't move. She's hungry." Jaron took a step back, surprised. He thought this was just a petty thief, but now he saw something different. This child wasn't bad, just desperate. "Where is she?" Jaron asked. The boy hesitated, looked around like he was scared someone might hear. "Please," the boy said, "don't tell the patrols. They'll take us." "I won't," Jaron replied. "Show me where she is." The child turned and ran, not away this time, but forward. Jaron followed him through the back fence, into the ruined buildings beyond the junkyard. Broken glass crunched under their feet. Old signs in alien languages hung from walls, faded and forgotten. Finally, they reached a half-collapsed warehouse. The roof was open in places, and wind blew through the cracks inside. It was dark and cold. The child walked to a corner, where a bundle of cloth and rags lay still. "Mama," he whispered, kneeling beside the bundle. Jaron came closer and saw her, an alien woman, older, thinner, her skin pale and dry. She was breathing, but barely. Her lips were cracked, and her hands shook as she tried to reach for her son. Jaron felt something shift inside him. This wasn't some dangerous alien threat. This was a family trying to survive. "How long has she been like this?" he asked. The boy wiped his nose. 3 days, no food, no water." "I tried." Jaron looked around. There was nothing here, no supplies, no medicine, just a mother and her son, waiting to die without thinking. Jaron took off his coat and wrapped it around the woman. "Stay here," he said. "I'll bring food, water, and something warm." The boy looked at him with wide eyes, not understanding why a stranger would help. "You came after me," he said slowly, "but you didn't hurt me." Jaron gave him a tired smile. "Maybe you ran for a reason." As he stepped outside, the cold wind hit his face, but inside, something else burned, a feeling he hadn't known in years. A reason to care, a reason to return. This wasn't just about stolen food anymore. It was about saving lives. And Jaron wasn't going to walk away this time. Jaron returned to the warehouse just before nightfall. The sky above the colony was red with dust. and cold winds howled between the buildings. In his arms, he carried a small thermal blanket, a few protein packs, a bottle of clean water, and some old clothes. His boots crunched on broken glass as he stepped inside the warehouse again. The boy was still there, sitting beside his mother, holding her hand. He looked up when he heard the noise, fear flashing in his glowing blue eyes. But when he saw Jaren's face, he relaxed a little. "You came back," the boy whispered. As if surprised, "I said I would," Jaren replied, kneeling beside them. He unwrapped the supplies and handed the boy the food. The child tore open a protein pack and gently held it to his mother's lips. She was barely conscious, her breathing shallow, her skin cold to the touch. Jaren placed the blanket over her frail body. She flinched slightly, her eyelids moving. "But she didn't speak. She was strong," the boy whispered. "She carried me through the wastelands." Jaren looked at the child carefully. "What's your name?" The boy hesitated, then said softly, "Keel. And your mother?" "Her name is Sira," Jaren nodded, then opened the bottle of water and helped pour a little into Sira's mouth. She swallowed slowly, her throat making a weak sound. Keel held her hand tightly, whispering in his language, gentle, soothing. Words Jaren didn't understand. For a long moment, there was only silence and the sound of the wind. "How long have you two been here?" Jaren asked. 4 days, Keel replied. "Before that, we ran for 2 nights from the camp." "What? Camp?" Keel looked down, afraid to speak. Jaren waited, giving the boy time. Finally, Keel said, "They made us work. Break rocks, clean waste. Mama tried to hide me, but they found us." He wiped his nose on his sleeve, his hands shaking. "We escaped, but Mama was hurt when we climbed the fence." Jaren's jaw tightened. He had heard rumors about camps like that, places where alien families were forced to work for food. Officially, they didn't exist. But here was living proof, lying sick and dying in front of him. "I won't let them take you back," Jaren said quietly. Keel looked up, eyes wide. "You won't tell anyone?" Jaren shook his head. "No patrols, no bounty hunters, no one." Keel smiled for the first time. A small, broken smile that made Jaren's heart twist. He stood up and looked around the warehouse. The walls were cracked, the roof full of holes. And the cold was creeping in fast. This place was not safe. "You can't stay here much longer," Jaren said, more to himself than to the boy. "If she gets colder, she won't make it through the night." Keel's face grew pale. "What can we do?" Jaren hesitated, thinking hard. He had a small cabin on the edge of the junkyard. Not fancy, but warm, with clean water and a bed. If he brought them there, it would be dangerous. Harboring runaways was a crime on this colony. But if he left them here, Sira would die. "I'm going to carry her," Jaren finally said. "We'll go to my place." Keel blinked, shocked. "Really?" Jaren nodded. "But you have to stay quiet, both of you." He knelt beside the alien woman and gently lifted her. She was too light, like someone made of bones and shadow. Her head fell against his chest as he wrapped the blanket around her tightly. Keel followed closely, holding the supplies in his small arms. Outside, the sky was darker now. They moved quickly, staying in the shadows, avoiding the streetlights and the flying patrol drones that buzzed overhead. Jaren's heart pounded every time he heard a sound, his breath catching, his legs moving faster. One wrong step, one curious guard, and they'd all be caught. But luck was on their side that night. They reached the junkyard without being seen. Jaren unlocked the back door to his cabin and let Keel in first. He laid Sira down on the small bed in the corner and turned on the heat lamp above her. Keel placed the food beside her and knelt down. Again, whispering to her softly, Jaren watched them, unsure of what to feel. He had lived alone for years, never letting anyone close. But tonight, everything changed. He had followed a thief, and instead, he found a dying mother, a frightened child, and something he didn't expect, a reason to care again. The room was warm now, but the woman still shivered under the blanket. Her breathing was slow, uneven, like a whisper that could fade at any moment. Jaron sat on the edge of the bed, watching her face. Sierra's eyes were closed, and her skin had lost all color, a pale gray with faint purple veins showing underneath. Keel sat on the floor beside her, holding her hand tightly. He hadn't moved in an hour, not even to eat. His small fingers trembled, but his grip on his mother never loosened. Is she going to die? He asked quietly, his voice full of fear. Jaron didn't answer right away. He didn't want to lie, but he also couldn't crush the boy's hope. I don't know, he finally said. But I'll try to help her, I promise. Jaron walked over to the sink and grabbed his old med kit. It was dusty, barely touched in years, but it still had basic supplies: bandages, healing cream, a fever patch. He cleaned her cracked lips with wet cloth, placed the fever patch on her forehead, and added more padding under her body. Her skin was cold, too cold for someone who'd been inside for nearly an hour. She's freezing from the inside, Jaron muttered. Keel looked up, eyes wide. What does that mean? She's weak. Very weak, Jaron said. Her body isn't making enough heat. Keel reached into his torn shirt and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it gently and showed Jaron a small glowing crystal, barely the size of a coin. She gave this to me, Keel said. It keeps a little warmth, but it's fading. Jaron stared at it, recognizing the faint energy pattern. This was alien tech, probably a family keepsake. He didn't know how it worked, but it was nearly drained. She saved it for you, Jaron said. She probably used all its warmth on you first. Keel's lip quivered, and he looked back at his mother. She always gives me everything, he said softly, even when she has nothing. Jaron placed the crystal near Sierra's chest, hoping it might help just a little. Then he stood and went to the corner of the room. He tapped into his old cum screen and searched for something he hadn't used in years: old black market medical channels. He didn't trust the colony's main systems, not after what he saw tonight. But no one answered. Most of the contacts were gone, arrested or offline. He slammed the screen shut in frustration. Keel flinched at the sound, his eyes big and scared again. Sorry, Jaron said quickly. I didn't mean to scare you. Keel didn't speak, but he nodded. He curled up beside the bed, his hands still clutching his mother's, his eyes heavy with sleep. Minutes later, he drifted off. Jaron watched him, amazed by how this child still held on. No blankets, no food of his own, yet he didn't complain. He only cared about his mother. Jaron sighed and sat down. He looked at Sierra again, her face calm now, but too still. He reached out, gently touched her hand. It was warm now, just barely, but still warmer than before. Please hold on, Jaron whispered. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I want to help. Suddenly, Sierra stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. Weak and unfocused, Jaron leaned closer. Sierra, can you hear me? She blinked, her lips moving slightly. Keel, she whispered, voice cracked and dry. He's here, Jaron said, pointing to the boy curled beside her. He's safe. Her eyes slowly moved to her son, and a faint smile touched her lips. Alive? She breathed, thank you. Then her eyes closed again, but her breathing grew steadier. Not strong, but better than before. Jaron leaned back, stunned. She had spoken. It wasn't much, but it meant something. She was still fighting, even half dead. Her first word was her son's name. That night, Jaron didn't sleep. He kept the heat lamp running, changed her bandages, and fed Keel once he woke. In between, he thought about what to do next. He couldn't keep them here forever, not with patrols searching for escaped labor units. If the authorities found her, they'd drag her back to that camp or worse. And Keel would go to a holding facility, alone. Jaron had seen what happened in those places. He couldn't let that happen, not now, so he made a silent promise to himself. No matter what it cost, he would protect them. He would keep this boy and his mother safe, even if it meant becoming a criminal in the eyes of the law, even if it meant putting himself in danger, because tonight, something inside Jaren had changed. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. This was a beginning, asterisk. By morning, Sarah's breathing was more stable. Her skin still looked pale, and her body was weak, but she was no longer shaking. Keel sat beside her, watching her sleep, his little hand never letting go. Jaren stood by the window, staring at the fence outside the junkyard. Something was wrong. 2 patrol drones had passed by in the last hour, flying lower than usual. Jaren knew the colony's routine well, and this wasn't normal. He stepped outside to check the main gate, and saw it fresh boot prints in the dust. Someone had come near the yard. Someone had been watching. He rushed back inside and locked the door. Keel looked up, alarmed. "What's happening?" "We don't have much time," Jaren said. "They might be looking for her." Keel's eyes filled with fear. "They'll take Mama away." "No," Jaren said firmly. "Not if we move first." He grabbed his old transport bag from the closet and began packing supplies, food, water, a portable heat pod, and spare clothes. He wrapped Sarah in a warm blanket and gently lifted her from the bed. She barely stirred, her body still too weak to move on its own. "I know a place," Jaren said to Keel. "But it's far. We'll have to leave now." They stepped out into the back alley behind the junkyard. The sun was rising slowly, casting orange light over the broken buildings. Jaren carried Sarah close to his chest, while Keel walked beside him, holding onto his coat. They took narrow paths between warehouses, staying low and out of sight. Every sound made Jaren stop and listen. A drone buzz in the distance, a gate creaking in the wind, the bark of guard dogs far away. His heart raced, not from fear for himself, but for the 2 fragile lives he was trying to protect. As they moved through a wide drainage pipe under the old factory road, Keel finally asked, "Where are we going?" "There's an old cave system in the canyon ridge," Jaren said. "Smugglers used it long ago. No one goes there now." "No," Jaren replied. "That's why it's safe." They reached the edge of the colony's outer ring. Tall fences with warning signs marked the end of government-controlled land. Jaren pulled out a device from his pocket and jammed the scanner. The gate flickered and then unlocked, allowing them through. They crossed the dusty ridge and followed a rocky trail that twisted upward. Sarah moaned softly in her sleep, her head resting against Jaren's shoulder. Keel looked up at her constantly, whispering soft words in their alien tongue. Jaren kept walking, step by careful step. Finally, they reached the cave. Hidden behind a rockslide and covered in moss, Jaren had found it years ago when scavenging for parts. He pushed aside the stone and led them inside. It was dark and quiet, the air cold but dry. He set Sarah down on a bed of soft cloth he had left there long ago. Keel lit the heat pod and the warm glow filled the cave. Sarah stirred again, her eyes fluttering open. She looked around slowly, confused, then spotted her son and smiled faintly. "You're safe," she whispered. Keel nodded, his eyes teary. "We're all safe now, Mama." Jaren stepped back, giving them space. His arms ached from carrying her so far, but he didn't care. He sat near the cave's entrance and listened. The wind outside whistled through the cracks, but no sounds of pursuit followed. Still, he couldn't relax. Back in the colony, someone would be looking for the missing pair. Patrols would increase, checkpoints would be set, and if they tracked his movements, they might come here. Jaren checked his old wrist. He sent a coded message to an old friend, a woman named Nira who worked in the black market. "If anyone's watching me, I need a distraction," he typed. Then he waited, hoping she still owed him a favor. Hours passed. The sun moved high in the sky. Sarah drank some warm broth and stayed awake longer this time. She looked at Jaren with tired but grateful eyes. "You risked everything," she said quietly. "Why?" Jaren looked down at his hands, calloused and dirty. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "Maybe I was tired of looking away." Sarah closed her eyes, her lips trembling. "Most people walk past us, pretend we don't exist," she whispered. "Not anymore," Jaren said. "Not as long as I breathe." Just then, his wrist beeped. Nera's reply came through. Distraction set at Central Patrol Hub. 30 minutes of confusion. Use it well. Jaren smiled. A rare smile filled with purpose. He looked at Sira and Keel, both watching him now. This isn't the end, he said. It's just the beginning. Because now Jaren wasn't just hiding them. He was planning to fight for them. And in the shadows of the canyon, a human and 2 aliens waited quiet, but not afraid. A new bond had formed, stronger than fear, stronger than law, and it was only the start. The cave stayed quiet through the night. Jaren sat by the entrance, watching the stars above the canyon walls. He hadn't slept, but his mind was wide awake. Every sound outside made him grip the small blaster at his side tighter. Inside, Keel had curled up beside his mother. Sira was awake now, weak but speaking in soft words. Her voice was clearer than before. And Jaren finally saw her fully. She wasn't just a random runaway. Her posture, her speech, even her eyes, there was something regal about her. You never asked who I am, Sira said quietly, looking at Jaren from across the firelight. He blinked, surprised. I figured it wasn't my place. She gave a faint smile. Most wouldn't care anyway. Keel sat up slowly, sensing the shift in mood. He looked at his mother, then at Jaren, then back at her again. Should I tell him? Sira asked the boy. Keel nodded without a word. Sira took a slow breath, her hands resting in her lap. I was once part of the royal circle on Argalon Prime, she began. Jaren frowned. You mean the capital world of the Zilari Empire? Sira nodded slowly. I was a diplomat, trained in law and peace treaties. Then why were you in a labor camp? Jaren asked, confused. There was a rebellion, she said, her voice low. The new queen feared the old houses called us traitors. My name was erased, my rights stripped, and I was sent to the outer colonies like trash. Jaren sat in silence, trying to understand the weight of her words. You were royalty? I was, Sira said softly, but now I'm just a mother trying to keep her son alive. Before Jaren could speak again, a high-pitched beep echoed in the cave. He reached for his wrist. A message flashed on the screen. Not from Nera this time. It was unknown, encrypted, and pulsing red. What is that? Keel asked, eyes wide. Jaren opened the message, his heart thudding as the words appeared. Return the royal traitor at once, or be hunted. You are harboring a criminal of state importance. You have 48 hours after that. No mercy. There was no name, no ID tag, just a symbol one Jaren had seen in history reports. It belonged to the Queen's Shadow Command, assassins who answered only to the Zilari crown. Sira's face went pale when she saw the symbol. They found us, she whispered. I thought I had time. Keel reached for her hand, panic rising. What do we do? Jaren stood up and paced, his mind racing. He wasn't just hiding runaways now, he was protecting someone the Empire wanted dead. And they knew he had her. They'll scan the entire canyon within hours, Jaren said. We need to move again. Where? Keel asked, his voice cracking. There's no more places to run. Sira looked at Jaren, her eyes sharp now despite her weakness. There's one place, she said. A contact on Varel's moon, a safe world beyond patrol range. But it's 2 systems away, Jaren said. We'll need a ship. He tapped his wrist again and sent another message to Nera. Need off-world exit now. Urgent. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then came the reply. I can get you a transport, but it's expensive and dangerous. You've made powerful enemies, Jaren. He smiled bitterly. Yeah, I noticed. Sira struggled to sit up, leaning on her elbow. I know I've brought you trouble, she said. But I swear, if Keel gets to Varel's moon, he will be safe. Jaren looked at her for a long moment, then said, both of you are getting out. A shadow passed over the cave opening, and Jaren jumped to his feet, blaster ready. But it was just a small bird, fluttering past, still. His pulse stayed high, every second now felt like borrowed time. We leave at dawn, Jaren said. Pack only what we need. Keel nodded, helping his mother drink the rest of the broth. Jaren prepared the escape packs, checked his blaster, and set silent motion sensors outside the cave. The wind outside had changed. It carried the scent of something coming. Not patrols, not drones, but something worse. Something silent, precise. And Royal, the queen, had spoken. The countdown had begun. And in the cold firelight of a hidden cave, a tired man, a fallen royal, and a brave little boy prepared to run once again. Not just to survive, but to escape a fate written by power and fear. This time, they would not run blindly. They would run with purpose, with hope, and with one human willing to fight the galaxy for a woman and her son. Asterisk. The sun had not fully risen when Jaren stepped out of the cave. The wind blew cold across the rocky ridge, and the sky held a red tint. He scanned the canyon walls, watching for movement, listening for the hum of drones. But everything was silent, too silent, inside. The cave. Sierra rested while Keel packed their few belongings into a cloth bag. The boy moved quickly now, no longer as scared as before. He had seen Jaren stand against fear, and now, some of that courage lived in him too. Jaren checked the cum wrist again. A new message blinked from Naira. Docking pad secured. Transport. Leaving in 3 hours. Location. Old mining station, Alpha 7. But beware, hunters are in the area. Jaren's jaw tightened. He knew what that meant. The queen hadn't waited for her ultimatum to expire. She had sent bounty hunters early. Change of plans, he said as he entered the cave again. We move now. We head straight for the mining station. Sarah looked up, her face pale but calm. You're risking everything, she said. Jaren shrugged. Not the first time. Keel helped his mother stand, using one of Jaren's walking sticks to steady her steps. She was still weak, but determination shone in her eyes. I can make it, she said. I have to. They left the cave quietly, moving through rocky trails and narrow canyons. Jaren led the way, blaster in hand, eyes scanning every cliff and shadow. The mining station wasn't far, just 2 miles across the ridge, but the land between here and there was exposed. They stayed low, moving between boulders, using old metal ruins for cover. But halfway across the plain, Keel stopped. I hear something, he whispered. Jaren paused and listened. A soft hum echoed in the air, low and steady, like a silent engine. Then he saw them. 3 figures on hoverbikes, dressed in black armor, eyes covered by mirrored visors. They moved in fast and smooth, circling the rocky plain. Bounty hunters. Jaren cursed under his breath. They're sweeping the area, looking for us, he said. We need a diversion. He handed Sierra a small signal flare. When I tell you, run straight toward that broken fuel tower over there, he pointed. You'll be safe behind it. Wait for me. But what about you? Keel asked, voice shaking. Jaren smiled. Don't worry. I've played hide and seek with worse. He ran to the left side of the ridge, climbed a broken platform, and fired 1 shot into the air. The sound echoed like thunder, and all 3 hunters turned toward it. In that moment, Sierra and Keel ran as fast as they could toward the tower. Jaren moved fast across the rocks, leading the hunters away. Blaster fire zipped past him, sparks flying from stone walls. He ducked behind an old mining cart and returned fire, hitting one of the bikes. It spun out and crashed, but the other 2 kept coming. Come on, he muttered, reloading. He leaped across a metal bridge and fired again, hitting the second bike's engine. The rider bailed out, rolling hard, but still alive. Only 1 left. Jaren turned and ran toward the tower now, heart pounding. He ducked under fallen debris as the last hunter fired at him from above. Sierra and Keel were already hiding behind the tower, watching with wide eyes. Jaren reached them and slid behind cover, gasping for breath. The last hunter circled overhead, scanning. Then he hovered down and aimed straight at Jaren. You've got something that doesn't belong to you, the hunter said coldly. Jaren stood up slowly, holding the blaster at his side. She's not property, Jaren said. She's a mother, and the Empire will not touch her again. The hunter laughed. You think one man can stop a royal bounty? No, Jaren said, but one man can slow it down. Then, from behind, a second shot rang out. The hunter's visor cracked, and he fell to the ground unconscious. Jaren turned and saw Nira, standing on a ridge above with a long-range rifle. Miss me? She said with a grin. You're late, Jaren replied, grinning back. She tossed him a signal beacon. Your ride's landing in 5 minutes. Jaren helped Sarah up, and they rushed toward the clearing where an old cargo shuttle was descending. Dust flew in all directions as the landing gear touched down inside the shuttle. The pilot nodded once and opened the hatch. Jaren, Sarah, and Keel climbed aboard, and Nira followed behind them. As the engines roared to life, Jaren looked out. The window one last time. The canyon was quiet again, but the war wasn't over. They had escaped the hunters this time, but the Queen would not forget this. And Jaren knew somewhere another trap was already being prepared. Still, as the ship lifted into the sky, he looked at Keelsafe, smiling for the first time in days. He looked at Sarah alive, leaning against his shoulder, and in that moment, he knew. Whatever came next, he would face it, because this wasn't about survival anymore. It was about protecting what mattered, a new family, built not by blood but by choice. The shuttle left the dusty canyon behind and soared through the clouds. Inside, the hum of the engines felt like the heartbeat of something new. Sarah rested in one corner of the cabin, her eyes closed, arms wrapped around Keel. He had finally fallen asleep, his face calm for the first time in days. Jaren sat across from them, watching quietly. His clothes were still torn, his blaster scorched from the earlier fight. But none of that mattered now. He had done what few ever dared. He had protected someone the system wanted forgotten. Nira stepped into the cabin with 2 metal cups in her hand. Recycled protein tea, she said, smirking. Tastes like old boots, but it helps with the nerves. Jaren took one with a nod. Thanks. She sat beside him and looked at Sarah and Keel. You really did it, she said, her voice softer. Now, you broke every rule for them. Jaren sipped the tea, then glanced at her. I didn't plan to, it just happened. Nira gave a small smile. That's how the best stories begin. As the stars appeared through the shuttle window, Sarah stirred. Her eyes met Jaren's across the small space. You should not have helped us, she said quietly. You could have died, Jaren shrugged. Then I would have died doing something right. Sarah shook her head. You don't understand, the Queen doesn't forget, you're marked now. I know, he said, but so are you. Sarah looked down at Keel, who still slept peacefully against her chest. I gave up everything when I ran, she whispered. My title, my planet, my people. But you didn't lose your soul, Jaren replied. And now your son has a future. The pilot's voice crackled through the speaker. Approaching Varel's moon. Docking station in 10 minutes. Jaren stood and walked toward the window. Outside, a beautiful green moon came into view, surrounded by floating farms and peaceful cities. It wasn't fancy, but it was free. Place beyond the Queen's control. Sarah walked to him slowly, Keel beside her now, holding her hand. We can live here? She asked softly. Jaren looked at her, then down at the boy. You can more than live, you can start over. Keel looked up, his eyes glowing softly. Will you stay with us? Jaren blinked, surprised. What? Keel stepped forward, still holding his mother's hand. You helped us when no one else did. You fought for us. And Mama smiles again because of you. Sarah didn't speak, but her eyes glistened, and she didn't look away. Jaren scratched his beard, unsure what to say. He had lived alone for so long, cold, quiet, and far from everyone. But now, for the first time, someone had asked him to stay, not for duty, not for reward, but for family. If you'll have me, he said quietly. Then yeah, I'll stay. Keel smiled wide and hugged him, small arms wrapping tightly around his waist. Sarah stood beside them, tears in her eyes. "You are more than a hero," she said. "You are our home." The shuttle landed gently, and the hatch opened with a hiss. A soft breeze from Virel's moon filled the cabin, fresh and warm. Mira helped them down the ramp, then handed Jaren a small data card. "It's not goodbye," she said. "That has codes, supplies, and safe contacts if you need them." "Thanks for everything," Jaren said, shaking her hand firmly. Mira looked at Sierra and Keel, then back at Jaren. "You did something big, Jaren. Don't let it slip away." Then she turned and walked back up the ramp, the shuttle rising slowly into the sky. Jaren stood in the soft grass, the moonlight above glowing like hope. Sierra held Keel's hand, and with her other hand, she reached out to Jaren. He took it, gently. They walked together toward the lights of a small village in the distance. Each step felt like a beginning, each breath like freedom, each heartbeat like a promise. There would be challenges ahead. There would be questions, fears, and memories that would take time to heal. But they had each other now, and that was something no empire could take. In a galaxy full of war, greed, and silence, one human had chosen to listen, to care, to fight, and in doing so, he became something more than a man. He became a protector, a father, and a reason to hope, because sometimes family is not found by blood. Sometimes it is found in the darkest moment, when one person chooses to stand beside another, no matter the cost, no matter the danger, because love is worth fighting for. And this was a family worth everything.